Welcome. Thank you for joining me for Solutions with Animal Services. My name is Laura Winnie. I'm the Humane Educator at Animal Services for DuPage County. And today we're going to talk about all the things that DuPage County Animal Services does. So, all about us. Our motto is saving animals and serving people. So, we're going to talk all about that. And then, if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat window, but I won't be looking at the chat window until we get to the end of the presentation. I am recording this presentation. We'll post it to our YouTube page later on for people who may have missed it. And everyone is muted right now. Please keep yourselves that way just so that we don't have any audio interference. So let's get started. So what is DuPage County Animal Services? We're kind of a unique county government-run animal services because, for one, we do have a shelter. This wasn't always the case, though. So animal control started in DuPage County, was established in the 1930s, and it was pretty much what it sounds like. It was animal control focused on a lot of stray animals and making sure that the populations weren't getting too crazy out of hand. In 81, they updated the name to DuPage County Animal Care and Control to better reflect the mission at the time, focusing still on safety, on strays, and on rabies control, but also expanded programs which included adoption and educational programs. Since then, in 2018, we further updated our name to DuPage County Animal Services to reflect more that we are a service for our community rather than just focused on the control aspects of our positions. We care for about 2,000 animals every single year, and we are not funded by property tax dollars. That's kind of a misconception that many people have. Instead, we are all revenue based. So the rabies tags, the surrender fees, all of those things that come through the shelter, that is our operating budget. So we are not operating on tax dollars at all, but we couldn't do that without our volunteers, our wonderful, wonderful volunteers. There are over 200 of them at last count. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we haven't been able to see a lot of them recently, but we're slowly starting to get back in the swing of things. And especially our fosters, we've really heavily relied on during the pandemic. So shout out to them, they're amazing. We also work really closely with DuPage Animal Friends. That is our nonprofit that does fundraising on our behalf to support our humane initiatives. So they do a bunch of stuff to provide grants, upgrades, and other extras that can help us further reach out and further make an impact in our community. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, animal control was pretty much what it sounded like. They were controlling stray animal populations, and they were also focused a lot on rabies control from the Rabies Control Act that came in the animal welfare. And a lot of the early efforts were just focused on removing those stray cats and dogs off the street and not a whole lot else. Eventually, over time, they figured out that just removing the stray animals does not solve the problem because more stray animals take the place. Instead, we're talking more about population control at that point. So really heavily working with communities for spay and neuter programs and making sure that there were as fewer obstacles as possible. Now, even further into that, we're talking about proactive animal control and really working with our community to understand what's in the best interest for their families, their own pets, for their neighborhoods, and for the greater community at large, and how we can make sure that we're having positive outcomes for these animals. Ideally, we want pets to stay with their owners, and we're going to work really hard with our community members to see what we can do, and we'll talk more about ways we work with that later. We also want to help people rehome their pets outside of the shelter if possible, because the shelter is a stressful environment. We know that, and we want to help the community members find other solutions if at all possible. But if not, we will take those animals in and we will work hard to get them to a place where they can be adopted or transferred to a rescue partner. Basically, our main goal is we want a healthy pet population, and that includes numbers where there aren't a bunch of homeless pets, and also that the pets in the homes are physically and mentally healthy and that they're in a good situation, and that the community members understand what legal responsibilities they have as pet guardians, and also making sure that they know we can provide resources to them. Now, our resources are limited, so we work with our volunteers, we work with other departments to efficiently use those resources, and we'll talk a little bit more about the partnerships that we have in the community towards the end of the program. Okay, so what does Animal Services do? We actually get this question quite a bit. It's a little confusing. We are an open admission animal shelter. So we do have a brick and mortar shelter right there at Animal Services, and we accept all domestic animals. And I mean all. We've had chickens, we've had lizards, we've had snakes, we've had all sorts of animals in there. We've had goats. So all domestic animals can be brought in. Larger livestock animals, unfortunately, we do not have the facility to be able to properly care for them, so we work with rescue partners for those animals. We are also the main agency responsible for preventing and controlling rabies throughout the county, and we do that through bite investigations to make sure that when someone is bit, a rabies observation protocol is followed to make sure that there wasn't an unnecessary exposure and that everybody stays safe and gets treatment if needed. And also through tag issuance to make sure people are following the law in regards to vaccinating their animals. We rescue and shelter stray animals and help reunite them with their owners, transfer them to rescue partners, or adopt them out to good homes. And we do provide veterinary care on site to treat any illness or injury that an animal who comes in the doors may have. And we will also make sure that all animals that are adopted out through us or transferred to rescue partners are spayed and neutered. We do that right on site. We've got some great veterinarians that work with us, not just our staff veterinarian, but also others that we partner with to make sure that we are responsibly adopting out these animals. We work with our community partners about responsible pet ownership. What should you be providing for these animals? Are you ready to care for a rabbit, a guinea pig, a dog? All these things that new pet owners may not know, we want to make sure that they're aware of. So we do have a vetting process for our adoption floor, and we also provide services like our webinars to make sure that people know what they can expect when they bring an animal into their home. So the first part of our motto is saving animals. And the main question that we get is, are we a no-kill shelter? No-kill is a little misleading. The proper terminology would be open admission or closed admission, because many of the no-kill shelters are actually a closed admission shelter, meaning they can turn away animals that they don't want to bring in. So very, very sick animals, animals that have a public safety warning with them, they can reject those animals. We don't. We take in everything. So some animals that come in through the door, they are humanely euthanized due to safety or health reasons. We look at the quality of life for that animal and look at humane euthanasia as the best option in those instances. We never want to euthanize for space, however. We never want to euthanize a perfectly healthy adoptable animal simply because we don't have room for them. And we have been very fortunate. For the first time in 2013, we achieved that goal and we have kept that goal. We actually have a very live release rate, meaning that the ratio of animals who leave versus the animals that come in, it's at 87%. And to be considered one of those no-kill shelters, it's actually 90% for them. So even those quote unquote no-kill shelters, those closed admission shelters, are euthanizing animals for the same reason that we would, for health reasons, for public safety reasons. It's just that they can be choosier with the animals that they bring in, so their ratio tends to be higher. Our ratio is amazingly high considering that we are an open admission shelter, and I am very proud of those numbers, and they just keep going up. It's fabulous. One of the biggest things that we do right at the shelter is lost animals. So animals that have been found either by members of the public or by members of the police department, they are brought to us, and our goal is to reunite them with their family. We check them for ID tags, collars, unusual markings, and of course the microchip. So you can see one of our animal care staff right there is searching for a microchip on this chocolate lab. I cannot emphasize enough how important microchips are, because ID tags, collars, and harnesses can get lost. Microchips are right under the skin, one easy scan, and we have all your information. It's also very important, if you move, update that microchip information so that if your animal gets lost, we're not chasing down an address you lived at 10 years ago versus the one you live at now. All of the animals that come in as lost and strays, we post to our Facebook page to get the word out to the community to be on the lookout if anybody knows that an animal is missing. We also check lost reports that come in through our system, and we will do a 7-day stray hold. 7 business days, that's the legal requirement. Oftentimes we keep them for longer in the hopes of reuniting them with their family. And we also evaluate them while they're here. What's their health look like? What any issues that we see, any behavioral things, so that if there's something that we notice and the owner comes forward, we can give them some advice. Hey, you may not have noticed, but it looks like this particular animal has a medical concern. You might want to check it out with your own veterinarian. We also work with finders who don't bring the animals to the shelter. Some finders see an animal in their neighborhood and they want to hold on to them just in case it's one of their neighbors or whatever. We'll still do all the same things without ever actually seeing the animal in our shelter. We will help them post to Facebook. We will get that word out. We will take down the information so that if anybody calls us looking for the animal, we have that right there available to talk to them. Because again, the end goal is we want these animals reunited with their owners. In fact, probably one of our more famous stories was Lola. She's a black lab mix that some local residents in the community found. She was really shy at first, and they worked for days to build up trust with her so they could bring her to us. Luckily, she was microchipped, and we were able to find the owner's record in the database and call them. It turns out that Lola had been missing for 3 years. So that's why microchips are so amazing, because after 3 years, she was reunited with her owners. And let's take a look at that reunion.
I kept repeating my husband's name over and over again because I was just stunned. All I could say was his name. And I showed him the text, and I called here, and I said, by chance, do you have a female black lab named Lola here? And they responded with, are you Deborah? And I just lost it. I just started crying because that just proved to me that it was her.
But it's extremely important to microchip your animal because a lot of them can get out without your knowledge. And if somebody comes across a stray and they bring it to us, we can scan it for the microchip and then reunite it with the family. If you don't have a microchip, it's a lot more difficult to reunite the dog with the family, just for the fact that they can travel long distances.
It's such a great story. I love that story. We will also take in owner surrenders from within DuPage County, and many people get kind of controversial about this topic, but the important thing to understand here is no one makes this choice lightly, and there are many, many reasons that people surrender their animals. Maybe moving from a bad situation into a better one, but the time is just not right. They need to focus on themselves, and it can just be very difficult to manage a pet, especially if you have children. So there are never happy reasons for surrendering an animal, and our job is to be sympathetic, non-judgmental, get as much information as we can. Was it allergies? Was it a landlord issue? Perhaps we can help find housing that's more pet friendly. Are there financial issues? If it's looking at vet bills, maybe we can connect you with some grant organizations. Maybe it's just too many pets. The bunnies that you see in the picture, that family got a really fast lesson in the birds and the bees one day when two bunnies that they thought were female turned out one of them wasn't. And all of a sudden, they had a lot of bunnies. And as you can see, they just weren't able to provide the medical care that these bunnies needed because there were just so many all of a sudden. The babies all had pretty bad eye infections. And so they came into us and we were able to treat them and adopt them out. Sometimes an animal's behavior or lack of training is just too much to deal with. This can happen when you take on a pet maybe from a friend or a neighbor trying to help them out and then realize that you're in over your head as well. Also, big changes in your family, like a new baby, can really cause people lots of problems. And sometimes the owners are just no longer able to provide care for whatever reason. Maybe they're moving into a nursing home, maybe they've recently had their own health crisis that they are working with, and they're just trying to do the best thing possible for their animal and find them a new home. As I said, our main job in that situation is to be as understanding and empathetic as possible to get as much information about their pet as we can to help make sure that we have the best options for positive outcomes. We do work closely with our rescue partners. A lot of times our rescues are able to provide a little bit more specialized care than what we can do in the shelter environment. They might have a network of foster homes, and some even are specialties in certain breeds. So understanding the needs of a particular breed and behavior or health issues that are incumbent with those breeds can be a great help with getting these animals to an adoptable state. Also, babies take a lot of care, and so having them transferred out to rescues and foster families can really help improve their quality of life over that in the brick and mortar shelter. We also provide resources to our rescue partners. A lot of times people will call with donations and we will accept those even though we're not going to use them at the shelter because we can then transfer them to our rescue partners. And we will also work with them on training or any specialty things that we see that they may not have experienced previously that we can help with. So a big thing that you hear, especially if you ever watched dog-centric movies, I'm a kid of the 90s, so my thing is I think of Homeward Bound, where Chance was freaking out about going to the pound because it's pet prison, basically. We work super hard to make sure that our animals are as comfortable as possible. We know it's a stressful environment. I mean, the best place for any animal is going to be in a home with their family where they feel safe and secure. We do lots of things with them. We do training, we do puzzles, we do toys, and we also engage their natural instincts through enrichment. So here in the photo, you can see Patches. He's doing a foraging sniffy game where the volunteers have actually hidden treats under those tennis balls, and he has to use his nose or his feet or whatever he can to get the tennis balls out of the muffin tin to get to the yummy treats inside. There are many benefits to training and enrichment for our shelter animals. One, it increases their adaptability. Just across the board, people are going to be more excited about an animal that knows how to do a few things than one that knows absolutely nothing. Even our cats and our rabbits, if they know how to do a special trick, that's going to be something that makes them highly adaptable because that's what people are looking for, right? We're looking for animals that kind of already got the basics down. It also decreases their stress. When they are working on something, when they're engaging mentally in something, it's going to take their mind off the situation and it's going to give them something else to focus on. It also helps wear them out. Mental exercise is a huge benefit, because I don't know if you remember from school, but you took a giant test and the end of the day you were exhausted. Even though you'd been sitting in a chair for an hour, the mental strain was enough, just like a marathon. You were mentally exhausted and then that translated into physically exhausting. That's really great for animals because it lets them sleep better, and better sleep, of course, leads to better health. It also helps us get a better idea of who these animals are as individuals. I'm sure you can relate to this. No one is their best self when they're super stressed out. So being able to get these animals to have fun, to engage with our volunteers, really helps us see who they are so that we can help match them with the proper family. I do have a video of one of our animals doing an agility course. So if anybody ever says, oh, cats can't be trained to do anything, well, then I'm going to introduce you to Dean the Ninja Kitty, because we set up a small obstacle course for him and he finished it immediately. He was like, what else you got? So we went a little bit beyond. And of course, he's getting lots of yummy treats for completing each step completely. Such a good boy. He was great. So we also have our own fostering program. We don't just foster out with our rescues. We have our own fosters that help out a lot, especially during the pandemic. Fabulous. We do both long-term and short-term fostering. Long-term is basically what most people think of when you think of fostering an animal. Until the animal goes for adoption, until they move into their home, they're with you. Long-term fostering is also great for any behavior concerns. Maybe the animal is just getting a little too stressed out in the environment and they're starting to act out in different ways, and we just want to get them into a calmer home situation so we can really work on those behaviors. Neonate care is also essential in fostering because these babies take a lot of work, and baby kittens need to be fed every couple hours, and it's starting to get to kitten season. So just a little plug, if anybody is interested in fostering cute little itty bitty baby kitties, we are having a fostering information session next Saturday, June 5th, and you can find the information to register on our website, because I mean, fostering does save lives in so many different ways. We do short-term fosters as well. Even a couple of hours outside of the shelter is going to help improve the mental health of these animals. And overnights are great. Let's see what the animal does in a home. Let's see a little bit more of their true personality. Let's get them out of the stressful situation. We also sometimes will do our stray holds, as I mentioned with lost animals, out in a foster home, especially if they're animals that come in and they have some medical issues that needs close monitoring. Those are great for short-term fostering while we wait for the owner to come forward. And of course, the end goal for most of our animals is going to be adoption, finding them that happy forever home. All of our adoptable animals get a health check. They get their vaccinations up to date. They go home with a microchip that's already registered to the adopter with the current information. They have a behavior evaluation. So our behavior specialists at the shelter will check out the animal and give advice on training, environment, what you might need to do to make sure that this animal integrates very well into your family. And of course, every animal that goes out is spayed and neutered so that we are not adding to any pet overpopulation. Some of our animals require a little bit of additional support. For example, the Underdog to Wonder Dog program focuses on animals that may not be 100%, but we still want to go ahead and get them into a home with additional supports. So the shelter provides training services with a behavior consultant so that you can work on these behaviors in your home and see and get the resources that you need to make sure that the animal is going to thrive and succeed in your home. Also comes with some training resources that you can just have, as well as a couple of toys and things that tend to work better with some more anxious dogs, some of the dogs that maybe have a few behavior problems. Our Working Cats program is for those cats who aren't quite socialized enough to be in a home, but they're not feral either. They would do best more in a working situation, basically rodent control. So working in breweries, warehouses, family farms, places where they can still provide a service, they can still get the attention and health care that they need, but we're not setting them up for failure by expecting them to be lap cuddle cats. Kind of similar is our Bashful Buddies program. These cats are shy, and they're gonna be shy for quite a while probably as they adjust to a new home. So this program is all about setting up expectations. Again, we don't adopt out Bashful Buddies and expect them to warm up to their new family right away. Maybe they came from a one-person household before and they're just not used to new people. And it's going to take them a long time to form that bond with a new family. What's great though is once those cats do bond, after you've put all your love and patience into them, that bond is so deep and fulfilling. So how do we help the people in our community? As you can see, we sometimes do our resources that people have donated to us, we distribute those out to the community. We'll either do that right at the shelter that you can see here, or we'll even get them to food pantries to help people in need. And a big thing that we do is rabies control. So that original control is still very important because it's the law. Legally, you need to have your pets vaccinated against rabies. And it was introduced a long time ago. It was introduced throughout the world, 1950s, some countries a little bit before, we were a little bit before that. And the important thing to understand about rabies control is in countries that have a strict rabies control policy, it has significantly curbed human fatalities of rabies. We're talking just a few every year versus thousands every year. And rabies is fatal in humans if left untreated. Once the symptoms show, there is no reliable treatment to prevent a fatality. However, if an animal bite occurs, either from our pets or maybe our pets come into contact with a bat, bats are the most likely carriers for rabies in our area. If we can test the animal to see if it had rabies, so if we do a specimen on the bat to see if it had rabies, and then we provide treatment before symptoms show, there's a much, much better chance that that's going to have a positive outcome. So making sure that, let's say we have a dog that bites and it breaks the skin, because even though that dog may be vaccinated, no vaccine is 100%. So we do want to follow that rabies protocol, do that rabies observation to make sure that the dog isn't showing any symptoms of rabies, because then we can make sure that if the person was exposed, they can get that treatment before it's too late. So always report an animal bite, report bats in your home, because we want to make sure that any bat to human contact is closely monitored and that those bats are tested to see if they're positive for rabies. So just keep that in mind. That's what we're here for. If you have a question, always happy to answer those. So just give us a call. We also have our specialty vet vehicle. This is awesome. It is a mobile surgical unit. It's really, really cool. It also can be a mobile adoption unit because we can open up the sides there, as you can see, to show off any of the animals that are there. So we, a lot of times we'll take this out to events for adoptoramas, things outside in the community. And we're really excited this year. We're hoping to start getting out to different parts of the community to bring health clinics Microchipping, that's spay neuter, vaccinations, and even just wellness checks to different members of our community who may find it difficult to provide enough care for their animals because they do not live near a veterinary clinic. It can be very difficult to get somewhere with your animal if you have to drive really, really far. Maybe your car breaks down, something like that. So being able to get out into the community and provide these services is something we're really excited about starting this year. With our community outreach, we also work with partners such as Feral Fixers, where we have them come and use the vehicle to spay and neuter all of these feral cats that are going to be TNR, so trap, neuter, release. These are cats that live in a colony or they're out in the community and someone is taking care of them, maybe not in a home because they're not socialized well enough for that. But we want to make sure that they're not contributing to the overpopulation problem. So yeah, spay and neuter, that's a big, big problem. It's a big problem throughout the world. It's gotten a lot better because more and more people are understanding the importance of spay and neuter. And something that we also provide are vouchers for our low-income residents to help them and remove the barrier of that cost to properly taking care of their animals. So residents that are on Social Security disability or on LINK can apply for these vouchers. They are distributed to them with a list of participating vet clinics, and then they go and get vaccinations up to date, a microchip if they don't have it yet, and then that's spay neuter surgery. This is funded through Anna's Law, which was a case in the Chicago area, I believe, where an animal was causing problems and it was just a stray animal. And they realized that one of the ways to reduce the amount of stray animals on our streets is to reduce the amount of dating that our stray animals can do, so that we are keeping those numbers lower, so that we don't have as many homeless pets. Again, the best place for a pet is going to be in someone's house where people are taking care of it. We also make sure that to educate people that spay and neutering an animal helps decrease not only the unwanted pets, but those negative outcomes. Because the fact of the matter is there's only so many households in DuPage County that can take in animals. And if we keep adding more and more animals to the county, and it's still the same amount of households that can take in animals, that math is never going to have a great positive outcome. It's always going to lead to more animals facing negative outcomes and also facing negative encounters with other animals and with people, because they're going to be vying for fewer and fewer resources. We do respond to sick and injured wildlife calls. I would say that's probably the majority percentage of calls that our animal control officers, our ACOs, respond to. Just like police departments, though, we have our jurisdiction and they have theirs. Basically, we respond to sick and injured wildlife in unincorporated DuPage County. So outside of a municipality, outside of a town, outside of a city, for those people who live in the unincorporated areas, they can call us. There are a couple of things that we can't necessarily help with, though. For example, if there is a sick or injured animal and it's able to flee, we're not necessarily going to be able to get it. We cannot set traps. You have to be specially permitted to do so, and we do not hold those permits. And chasing a sick or injured animal is probably just going to cause more damage, more chaos than help. So the animal needs to be either immobilized, not really moving too great. Maybe it's trapped if it's, say, in a garage or a shed or something like that. Or if it's unconscious, then we can come out and help 100%. If it's in your house, if it's in your living space, and it's not necessarily sick or injured, it's just in your living room, you know, especially bats. We want to make sure that we come out and get those, because it is possible if there's a bat in the living space that there's been a rabies exposure, and we want to make sure that we can send that back for testing to make sure that everybody in the family is going to remain safe. What we don't respond to, again, any animals that are able to run away from us will, and honestly, the best place for them is in the wild. If they can still move around, if they can still get food, they're going to be better in the wild than at a rehabilitation facility. Nuisance wildlife. So if you have a perfectly healthy animal just being an animal, so if you have a raccoon just doing raccoon things and it's in your attic or your chimney or hanging out under your deck, those aren't things that we're going to call out for. That's something that we're going to recommend you call a wildlife trapper. But before you do that, we would recommend humane hazing, or in other words, trying to get the animal to decide on its own not to live there anymore. And we are always happy to provide lots of advice, tips, things that you can do to decrease these negative encounters with wildlife, because wildlife is super, super awesome, but we completely understand that that doesn't mean you want to be roommates. Totally get it. We are always happy to provide information. Now, when you are calling from an incorporated area of DuPage, there is kind of a confusion with this, because we can help with local law enforcement, absolutely, but they have to call us in. We can't just go on our own. Again, it's out of our jurisdiction. So if you live in Naperville, that would be something you would call Naperville non-emergency police department and talk to them. If it's something that they want our help with, they can call us in, but they have to request our assistance to come out of jurisdiction. And we are always happy to help our law enforcement partners with emergency situations, with something going on that they don't feel comfortable handling. Maybe it's a larger animal or a particular situation where they just don't feel like they have the expertise to deal with it, and they call us in to help with. Same with aggressive animals. They may not know how to properly manage or contain an animal that is a public safety threat. And we are always happy to come out and help when they call us in. Now, in the office, we provide assistance to our local law enforcement partners by giving them advice. Simple as that. Letting them know where are some resources that they can find, how we would handle a situation, what they can do, what their options are, and what the laws say. That's a big one. There are so many laws out there. Not every police officer is going to know every single law, especially those that they don't deal with a lot necessarily. So questions about cruelty and neglect cases, abandoned animals, hoarding situations, things like that, they'll call and get our information from us on. We're also providing training to our law enforcement partners just to make sure that their officers out in the field are a little bit better equipped, a little bit more knowledgeable about what the responsibilities are and what the options are for any animals, whether wild or domestic, that they encounter while they're out and about. Now, I, of course, am partial to this service that we provide since it's near and dear to my heart, education. It's for residents of all ages. Before the pandemic, and hopefully soon, we provide tours of the facility. We also do outreach programs where we go into schools, community centers, churches, Elks Club, all of those civic organizations to talk about what we do, what services are there, and also how can you be a responsible animal lover with our wild animals and with our domestic animals. We also, of course, do webinars every Thursday night, and we have specific workshops. So starting back up in the fall, hopefully we'll be able to offer pet CPR and first aid classes again for those pet owners who want to go a little bit above and beyond to know how to care for their animals. We also provide a lot of information just over the phone or by email. You can send in an email with all sorts of questions and you will get an answer. You can send us a Facebook message or post something and you will get an answer to help with a particular problem, even if it's a referral or anything like that. So if you're looking for particular pet owner resources, we have them right on our website. Our website's a little hard to navigate sometimes, and we understand that. So if you're having difficulty finding something, you can always call or email us. We'll send it right to you. And this includes choosing the right animal for your particular situation. Do you have little kids who absolutely love cuddling and they want an animal that they can hold super tight and hug and just squeeze? Okay, well, not a whole lot of animals are going to super love that. So what are some resources we can give you as a parent to help your child have a great relationship with their animal? And what animals are going to be more forgiving of our children than others? Rabbits, for instance, definitely don't like being picked up and hugged. They're a prey animal, and that's very, very intimidating to them. So what are some things that we can do with our kids so that the animals and the kids get along and everybody's happy? We're also going to provide information for you on training, diet, enrichment, making sure that your animals are getting that mental stimulation, because that's not just important in a shelter environment, that's important everywhere. Making sure that our animals are the good kind of tired, right? I mean, not only after a really long walk, but after a really long training session, your animals are just going to be so happy, tired, and it's going to make life all around a lot better. So we're always happy to provide information on those kinds of things, and also referrals to specialists if you need them, helping you find resources in the community if you do need to rehome an animal for whatever reason, or if you're looking for low cost options for those veterinary bills. We got you covered. Just give us a call, look at the website, and we'll do what we can to make sure that you and your animal are staying as healthy and happy as possible. Okay, I know that was a ton of information and I went through it super fast. I do want to share something. It's a video of baby animals, because not everybody thinks of the animal shelter as a happy, joyful place, and it is. We have great staff members, we have great volunteers, we provide amazing experiences for the animals that are in our care. And I mean, who doesn't love baby animals? So I wanted to share this video with you guys. You've been so great, and I know you'll love it. just have to have my baby animals in there. So in conclusion, everyone, we are all about serving the animals in our community as well as the people. We're very focused on public safety with that rabies control, with those bite observations and those bite reports, and also healthy and happy pets. We want to make sure that every pet out there is having the best possible life. And we want to make sure that if you have a question, you know you can come to us for answers. If we don't know the answer, we're going to do our best to help you find a solution, either by providing referrals or referring you to websites that have great information. So anytime, you can always give us a call. That's what we're here for. And it's kind of hard because breaking down that stereotype of the dog catcher from the 1930s, the 1940s, and 1950s, we are so much more than just a pound. I think Chance and Homeward Bound would be very surprised to see everything that we offer these days. So folks, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat window. Before we go, I want to plug our upcoming webinars. Starting in June, we have kitty concerns, so common behavior issues and what to do about them. Figuring out how we can maybe curb some of those undesirable behaviors we see in our feline friends and getting positive solutions. We also want to talk about SHED, shelter, healthcare, exercise, and diet, the 4 necessities for healthy and happy pets. We'll talk about cats, dogs, and rabbits. In July, we'll talk about our smaller animals, so stay tuned for that. And going real deep dive from our 4 necessities into what you need to be able to care for a rabbit. A lot of people think that these are super easy pets and then are surprised when that's not so much the case. So what do you need for preparing your home for a rabbit? And then branching out from what can we do to be humane with our domestic animals and our wildlife animals, what choices and habits can we have in our daily lives that can affect animals all over the planet? So I hope to see you guys for that. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. And if you have any questions, maybe they occur to you later on, feel free to send me an email, humane.education@dupageco.org. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.